Hello everybody, Mark, aka the Nerdy Punk, back again tonight for a new video. Hope you all are doing well. We have just completed the first week of 2023 and hope you all had a great one and that 2023 may continue to bring you awesome things. So tonight we are going to recap all of the movies that I watched in December of 2022. So finishing off 2022 with what I watched in December. I watched 16 movies this past month. A pretty good number for me. I'd say when I'm working like every day, I usually get anywhere from 5 to 10 movies a month. So in this case, 16 was pretty good. And I literally exactly met my goal for the year, which was to watch 100 movies. And I was able to do that. I watched 100 movies in 2022 exactly. So that was pretty cool. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and get through the 16 movies that I watched in December 2022. First up here, we have Call Me By Your Name, which I have the Blu-ray of. I did not watch the Blu-ray copy. I actually bought the Blu-ray copy after I'd seen the movie. I streamed it on HBO Max. I don't know if it's still on there, but I think it's still on Netflix, if I recall correctly. This is a fantastic movie. I missed it when it came out in theaters. This was one of the many amazing releases in 2017. 2017 was the first year that I really started doing videos here on YouTube. I filmed my first video back in 2016, but 2017 was when I really got into the whole YouTube thing. And that was an incredible year for film. Easily one of the best of that decade. And maybe it's right up there with 2019 as to my favorite year in movies, like potentially ever. It was such an incredible year. So nonetheless, this was one that I missed, and I'm disappointed I missed it because this would have definitely been a top 5 for me back then. Although, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, like the reasons why I loved this movie, I don't know if I would have connected with it as much back then because I have grown and I've seen a lot more movies and my taste in movies has changed. Maybe I wouldn't have appreciated this as much back in 2017. So, you know, I'm not like a big believer in chance or anything, but maybe this movie just kind of came to me at the right time. It's directed by Luca Guadagnino, I think I pronounced that correct, and of course stars Timothée Chalamet, Armie Hammer. Timothée Chalamet plays a young boy who is, I think he's like an American, but he's an American family that live in Italy during the summer. So it takes place during a summer where Timothée Chalamet's character's, his father hires a research assistant every summer. And this year the research assistant was played by Armie Hammer. And Armie Hammer's character and Timothée Chalamet's character fall in love over the course of the summer, and it's all about kind of their relationship, and it covers a lot of really deep topics. It is absolutely fantastic, a fantastic ending. I loved this movie. Next thing that I watched, I actually don't have a physical copy of, and that is 17 Again. I watched this movie on Netflix pretty quickly after. I was doing a little movie night, I think. It's been a while since I watched this. This was the beginning of the month, of course. 17 Again is kind of a guilty pleasure movie for me, so I did have a DVD copy of this way back in the day. I was 13, I believe, when this movie came out, and it had Zac Efron in it, and of course Zac Efron was everywhere in the late 2000s and early 2010s. So, you know, I had just watched like High School Musical back then. I liked that. And so I watched this one because it had Zac Efron in it, and his character played basketball. And I loved basketball when I was like a 12, 13-year-old kid. Yeah, this is not the best movie in the world, but it is a guilty pleasure for me nonetheless, because I watched it when I was so young and enjoyed it then. Now that I've watched it to like this month and now as a movie fan, I absolutely couldn't stand many of the parts of this movie. I enjoyed myself. I didn't hate myself while I was watching this movie, but I recognized every single trope and stereotype that was used in this movie, and it just annoyed the living heck out of me. But I still liked the scenes that I remembered liking growing up. Obviously, you know, I was just kind of starting to get interested in girls, of course, and Michelle Trachtenberg is in this movie, and she, late 2000s Michelle Trachtenberg I mean, she's still gorgeous, but man, she was incredibly gorgeous in the movie, except for it's a very weird scene between Michelle Trachtenberg and Zac Efron's character in the movie. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Very odd scene, but nonetheless, I enjoyed this for what it was. Basically what you have here, Matthew Perry plays the adult version of this character who is basically unsatisfied with his life. He's going through a divorce. He's basically looking back at his high school days very fondly and thinking he's made some bad decisions. So in kind of an It's a Wonderful Life spin, he gets sent back to live as a 17-year-old again, and chaos basically ensues. And it's largely a funny movie with some pretty decent messages behind it. So I forget what I gave this. I think it's 2 stars on Letterboxd. Next movie. This one I do have the physical copy of, and that is The Big Lebowski. I watched this on 4K for the first time this past month. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. Jeff Bridges plays the dude. Such iconic moments in this movie. John Goodman's performance is so incredible. It's so funny. Yeah, it's a great movie, and I thought it looked fantastic on 4K. It's a 5-star for me. Next one that I watched, so in last month's video, I mentioned that my friends and I were going through a watch of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the extended cuts, and we finished it off in early December with Return of the King. So the extended cut of this movie is about 4 hours long. Nuts. Like I mentioned in last month's video, I think I would prefer the theatrical editions because I feel like there was a lot that could have been cut out of this movie. It did feel like it drug at times, but nonetheless, the amazing filmmaking that went into these movies is incredible, and I definitely appreciate it for that. And by this point, I had really latched on to some of the characters, so the emotional payoff was there. Again, I think if I'd have watched this when I was younger and really kind of invested into it, it would have more meaning for me, but I still enjoyed them. Next movie that I watched, we have Lincoln. Lincoln is a movie that I showed to my history students this past month. Usually, like I said in the past video, I like to show my students a movie based on historical events at least once a year. And this year for American History, we watched Lincoln. We had watched it in the past. We didn't watch it the past couple years, but I think it is just a fantastic portrayal of Abraham Lincoln and kind of the horse trading nature of politics at the time, kind of how things got done. Basically, it follows Abraham Lincoln throughout the last months of the Civil War, and mainly focusing on his efforts to get the 13th Amendment passed to abolish slavery in the United States. So, and I think it does a really good job at portraying that. Daniel Day-Lewis's performance as Lincoln is incredible. He absolutely deserved the Academy Award for this. So yeah, I always love this movie. Next movie that I watched was actually the first trip to the movie theater of the month. I didn't get to the movie theater but maybe twice this month because of course this past month I got COVID, so I couldn't go to the movie theater when I absolutely wanted to go to the movie theater. So some movies got kind of pushed back into January, but nonetheless I watched She Said in the theaters. She Said is a kind of journalism movie that follows some reporters from the New York Times who exposed the Harvey Weinstein case several years ago and kind of kicked off the Me Too movement and that kind of stuff. I thought this was a really well executed journalism movie. It doesn't quite get up to the level of like a Spotlight for me or All the President's Men. Both of those movies I think are the gold standard of this genre, but I really like these movies, these kind of serious journalism movies that follow just the craft of journalism, and I really like that. So I did enjoy myself with this. I thought Carey Mulligan was really good. The other lead actress, I forget her name offhand, but I thought she was good. So I enjoyed this movie. Do I think it's necessarily Oscar worthy? Probably not. Is it going to be in my top 10? Probably not, but I thought it was a really well done movie. And there is a moment towards the end of this movie where it does feel very tense, and I thought that was pretty effective. But on the other hand, I did think it kind of ended relatively abruptly, so I wasn't sure if I was a huge fan of that either. Next movie that I watched was Avatar, the original from 2009, directed by James Cameron. I watched this in preparation to watch Avatar 2. Now, of course, because of COVID, I had to push that back, so I didn't actually see Avatar 2 until January. Update though, I have seen it as of the recording of this video. I liked it a lot. So stay tuned for my thoughts. Actually, no, I already posted a video. Forget all that. I already posted a video review. If you want my thoughts on Avatar 2, go to my channel. Nonetheless, here, so I rewatched Avatar, the original, and it had been several years since I've seen this. Maybe since 2010. I don't think I saw it in theaters, from what I can remember. I have a pretty vivid memory of renting this movie on DVD because we didn't have HD TV back then, I don't think. If we did, we didn't have a Blu-ray player, definitely. So I remember all kinds of trips going to the video store as a kid. That was one of my favorite places. We had a physical video store. It was called Movie Gallery for a long time, and then it switched to Family Video, which if you're from the Midwest, United States especially, you're probably familiar with that. Rest in peace, Family Video. Miss you guys so much. I loved Family Video. It was basically like the last remaining Blockbuster style chain, and it was a fantastic place. Nonetheless, I remember renting this movie and really liking it back then. Of course, it was a huge event. It still is, I think, the most highest grossing movie of all time. But I hadn't seen this movie in at least 10 years. I don't know when the last time was I watched it, but it was at least 10 years ago. And even though I think the social commentary of this movie is very on the nose, I, of course, didn't pick up on it as a 13, 14-year-old. And now that I've rewatched it, I do, and I think the movie is that much better because of it. So I really like the original Avatar. I know it gets a lot of hate. People basically say it's Dances with Wolves, but with the blue people, so it's Dances with Smurfs. I haven't seen Dances with Wolves. From what I know about that movie, it sounds kind of similar, but I really like this. So Avatar, of course, visuals are fantastic, and what it did for the Blu-ray format is also pretty incredible. So I enjoyed this upon rewatch. Next movie, this was my quarantine movie list here. So I watched Banshees of Inisherin on HBO Max. So it is out on physical now. It's only available on Blu-ray, not 4K. So, because it's a Disney movie, because it's a Searchlight Pictures owned by Disney now, it doesn't come with a slipcover. So based on the movie that it is and the fact that it doesn't come with a slipcover, I'm going to wait on picking that up on physical media. But I did really like the movie when I streamed it. It is very much a movie about breakups. Of course, the basic generalization of the plot here, you have Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson in kind of the two big roles. Brendan Gleeson's character and Colin Farrell's character are friends. Brendan Gleeson's character decides one day that he doesn't want to be friends with Colin Farrell's character anymore, and that's basically where everything starts. And it's a very dialogue-heavy movie. It's directed by Martin McDonagh, who made 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri a couple years ago. Also a 2017 movie that I really loved. So I'm gonna watch everything that guy puts out from this point forward, including this one, and I didn't really enjoy it as much as 3 Billboards, but I certainly recognize it for being a really, really damn good film and having fantastic dialogue, a great score, great performances, etc. Is it the movie I connected with the most this year? No, but is it certainly one of the best movies I've seen this year? Absolutely. So Banshees of Inisherin, highly recommend it if you haven't seen it yet. Next one I watched in my streaming quarantine was Bardo, or False Chronicles of something, something, something. There's a big long title for this movie, but Bardo is the newest movie from Alejandro González Iñárritu, and he is pretty famous. If you don't know him offhand, he's most famous probably for Birdman, which won Best Picture in 2014. He's also got films like The Revenant, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. That was the movie that DiCaprio won his Oscar for. He's made movies like Amores Perros is one of his more famous movies. I haven't seen that one yet, but I really like what I've seen from Iñárritu. Birdman is one of my favorite Best Picture winners of recent years, and I am going to watch, he's another director, I'm going to watch everything he puts out from this point forward. So Bardo has been getting a lot of mixed reviews from critics and audiences, and it's streaming on Netflix right now, so if you have Netflix, you can check it out there. It follows a kind of a middle-aged journalist who's going through a bit of midlife crisis type situation. I'm not really going to give away too much of the plot because it's kind of a surreal experience and it goes in a lot of different ways. And I really liked it. I liked Bardo a lot. I understand the criticism that it got. It does feel a bit too long. It's kind of bordering on the 2-hour, 45-minute range. It's quite a long movie. Definitely kind of self-indulgent, but I don't mind that at all. It reminded me a lot of like a Lynch film in the way that it was so surreal and odd, and I like that a lot. Obviously, Lynch is my favorite director, so I'm gonna be drawn to that no matter what. So I really like Bardo. I'm rooting for it in the international film category for the Oscars. It's not gonna win any other Oscars, but I'm rooting for it for international film, definitely. Next one that I watched here, another streaming title, we have Triangle of Sadness, which is the Palme d'Or winner. So the Cannes Film Festival occurs every summer. They give the Palme d'Or to the movie that they think is the best of the year, and this won this year. Last year's Palme d'Or winner was Titan, which was my favorite movie of the year last year. It was a fantastic film. I need to rewatch that. I haven't watched that in quite a while, but really loved that one. So, and then the year before was COVID, so they didn't have a Cannes Film Festival. So you have to go back the year before that. And that year's winner was Parasite. And Parasite was my favorite movie of 2019. So every year from this point forward, I've made a goal of seeing every Palme d'Or winner. Triangle of Sadness is not my favorite movie of 2022. I'll go ahead and spoil that right now. But I really liked part of this movie. Part of this movie I loved. I absolutely loved. So it's directed by Ruben Östlund, who's a Swedish filmmaker, and this is his first movie in English with English dialogue. And I really, really liked parts of this. There's parts of this I really kind of didn't like. The first 2 acts are fantastic, especially the second act. There is something that happens in the second act of this movie that I will not spoil, because if you haven't seen it, you gotta watch it for yourself. It is one of the coolest things I have seen, most bonkers, fun scenes that I have ever seen on film, and that is all I'm gonna say. I love the second act of this movie. The third act is where it lost me. So in the third act of this movie, the plot, it doesn't really change dramatically, but there's a dramatic event that happens and the setting of the movie changes completely. And I just felt like that third act drug on and on and on. I wish the third act was like 10 minutes and it's like 30 to 40 minutes. I feel like they could have told the same story in roughly 10 minutes or so, maybe just a little bit more, but it just drug for me. But the first 2 acts were fantastic. There's a lot of great social commentary about class and all kinds of stuff. Woody Harrelson delivers a fantastic performance. He's kind of the only mainstream American actor in the movie. I loved Triangle of Sadness, but it's not quite as good as some other things that I saw this year. Next film that I watched was Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, another Netflix title. This one, unfortunately, it only played in theaters for 1 week, and that was right before Thanksgiving, or maybe it was the week of Thanksgiving. I think it was the week of Thanksgiving. I loved Knives Out in 2019, and it's one of my favorite movies of recent years, and so I was really looking forward to this. I thought it was a very unorthodox, modern take on a whodunit murder mystery, and I really liked Glass Out. No cuts. I really liked Glass Onion as well, but I didn't like it as much as Knives Out. I thought Knives Out was a better movie from start to finish. They do kind of a similar approach where there's a big twist. There's actually several kind of twists in the movie. I thought there was some good jokes and references to the pandemic. I thought they incorporated that stuff pretty well. I thought it was a very funny movie, an entertaining movie, but I just didn't like it as much. And I think a lot of that has to come down to the actors. I didn't like the actors as much in this movie. I just didn't care for their performances as much as I did in Knives Out. I really loved the performances in Knives Out. You had, of course, Daniel Craig. You had Ana de Armas, who I loved. I actually discovered her through the movie. You had, I believe it was Jamie Lee Curtis in Knives Out? I forget. Don't hold me to that. But then you had Chris Evans in that movie. You had the late, great Christopher Plummer, who was incredible in that movie. Yeah, I just don't think this year's cast here with Glass Onion measures up quite. But I thought they did a decent job for what they had. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Didn't like it as much as Knives Out. Next one, we are on to Christmas Eve. So on Christmas Eve, I watched 2 Christmas movies. I usually only watch a handful of Christmas movies a year. I'm not one of those people that likes the Hallmark movies or anything, certainly. So this year, I usually watch one movie every year, and then I watch a fun one. This year's fun watch was Christmas with the Cranks, another movie from my childhood that's kind of nostalgic for me. Stars Tim Allen, Jamie Lee Curtis, definitely in this one. And it's just a really funny, it's a bad movie, but it's a fun bad movie, if that makes sense. I've seen it many times over, and it's the first time I'd seen it in several years, but I still enjoy the movie. And then the next one was It's a Wonderful Life, and that is a Christmas Eve tradition for me. I will watch It's a Wonderful Life every year. This year, I got to watch it on 4K. So I thought this looked beautiful in 4K. This was a great disc. Usually black and white movies look incredible on 4K, and I definitely loved this. Highly recommend this one. So the movie always hits me. I tear up at the end every time. Love that one. Next movie that I watched, so right after Christmas, my next watch was Footloose. Footloose is another kind of nostalgic one. I was on a nostalgic wave a little bit this month. Footloose from the 80s, it's one that I watched. I think we had on VHS back in the day. So I watched several times, and it's been several years since I've seen this. I've actually seen the remake more recently than I've seen the original. Again, maybe not the best movie in the world, but I really liked what it was going for. It delivers plenty of 80s goodness, great Kevin Bacon performance, really good music, some fun dance sequences, and just the overall message of dancing and freedom and kind of freedom of expression versus censorship I really liked as well. Next one. So towards the end of the year, finally got out of quarantine and I was able to go to the theater to see Babylon. Babylon was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. If you want my full thoughts on the movie, there is a movie review for Babylon on my channel. Definitely hit that up and go check it out. I loved Babylon, just cliff notes. I really loved Babylon. It was a fantastic movie, and I hate that it got the hate that it's getting because I think it's absolutely not deserved, and mark my words, there will be a critical reinterpretation of Babylon within the next few years. I can all but guarantee you. I think there's just so much great about that movie. Is it perfect? No. I don't think it's a perfect movie. But there's so much good there that I think people are going to look back on Babylon several years later as one of the better movies of the year, and just kind of what it has to say about Hollywood. It's not this Hollywood love fest, like, oh, look at how amazing Hollywood is, like we're glaring at our navel or anything. It's not like that. It takes the good and the bad of Hollywood and cinema, and the ending is just chef's kiss. And then the final movie to wrap things up that I watched in December of 2022, and thus the final movie I watched of 2022, was Decision to Leave, directed by Park Chan-wook. This is a movie from South Korea. This is one of the other contenders for Best International Feature at the Oscars this year, and I'd heard amazing things about this, so I absolutely had to watch it, and I think it delivered. It's a bit of a slower burn, in contrast to Babylon, although Babylon is so long. that movie is so fast-paced, it's crazy. This one is very slow, introspective, basically the opposite. But I thought the editing was really good, really creative. There's some really cool shots in this movie. I think direction was phenomenal. I think the story they told was really great. I really liked the themes of like not only unrequited love, but kind of this idea of forbidden love. I thought was fantastic. So I'm not going to spoil anything about the movie, but I think it was a great movie. And if you get a chance to watch it, definitely watch it. It is currently a Mubi exclusive, which Mubi is a streaming service that's kind of geared towards people like me, like cinema buffs and movie fans and people that collect things like Criterion like me. So if you're like that, I definitely recommend checking out Mubi. I just got a subscription like through Amazon Prime. I think it's like $8 a month or something. I don't know if I'll keep it, but I got it to watch this one and been kind of exploring it, and I think it's kind of cool. So we'll see if I keep that or not, but Decision to Leave thus is kind of hard to track down because of that, but I definitely recommend at least signing up for this like 7-day free trial to check out this movie. I think it was pretty solid. Okay, so that is a wrap on 2022. Unfortunately, I did not get out a recap for every month. So if you'd like to see everything that I watched on Letterboxd, you can follow my Letterboxd account linked down below. You can also do that to stay tuned for what I'm watching in January and beyond into 2023. My goal is to make one of these videos for every month of 2023. So we'll see if I make it. My life is about to get a lot busier as I head back into school and work and all that stuff. So I hope you all have an incredible January, and I will be in touch hopefully soon. I still have to make my top 10, or not, it's not a top 10, but my most anticipated movies of the year. I hope to get that one out in the next few days. And stay tuned for lots of other great content about movies coming up on the channel. So have an amazing weekend, guys, what's left of it, and I will see you later.